we have, before we do the roll call, we need to do it, or I just do the roll call first and then we can approve the 2449? If Robert's fine for that?
Yeah, I think I can do the roll call first and
Okay.
then we'll state for the record, who's joining remotely.
Thank you.
Diane Bailey. Here. Stephen Booker.
Present.
Joseph Chen.
Here.
Michael Clausen. Kathleen Goforth. Here. Melee Himuli. Here. Aurelio Pizar.
Here.
Gail Lee. Here. John McKenna.
Here.
Jason Mendelson.
Present.
Cheryl Schaff.
Here.
Brendan Tannis.
Great, he's here.
And Robert Whitehair.
Online.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Great. Do we need to take a vote on the 2449?
Let me ask Jen. So we have one member joining remotely.
Yes, and what is the stated reason for the remote?
For a health exemption.
Okay, and what health exemption? Is it a communicable disease? Got it. Okay.
I'm really surprised that I had to say that because I thought under HIPAA rules.
Yeah.
HIPAA is not at play here. We're not a covered entity, but
I'm disappointed that I had to say that.
I'm sorry about that, Mr. Whitehair. I am. The thing that I'm trying to get at is there are two different types of exceptions. So one has to be voted on and the other does not. And a communicable disease such as COVID would not be necessary to be voted on, whereas the other exception would. So Vanessa, what I'm going to ask is if we just take a 30-second break here, and I will get up the statute so that I can read it for the group. Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Given that this is a just cause, you confirm that there's no one else over 18 in the room with you?
There's no one else in the room with me.
Fantastic. And if you can just keep your audio and video on throughout the meeting, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Sure.
I think in the future you might want to investigate that. I did not want to disclose the reasons publicly. I did disclose it to Vanessa earlier. I thought that was enough. I just asked that in the future we think about that.
Appreciate that.
I understand. And I do want to state that there are different requirements for contagious disease versus another potential medical issue. And so I didn't need to know the specific medical issue, but I did need to know whether it was a contagious disease. So I apologize for.
No, you asked what it was. No.
Right. I asked if it was a contagious disease, but I apologize. I apologize for any concern that causes you, and we can move forward. Thank you.
Okay. We're not voting on this, correct? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So next is there any public comment? This is reserved for comments of items not on the agenda. It'll be limited to 2 minutes to present from members of the public who wish to speak on topics not on the current agenda. Any in the room? Are there any online?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next is, I will move that we set the agenda and approve the consent agenda items. Has everyone had time to review the minutes? We can approve the minutes.
So moved.
All right, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. So I remove my movement and we'll take there too, please. Can we get a vote on that, please? Can we do it by, or do we have to do it
Yes.
the right?
I'll do a roll call.
Okay.
Diane Bailey. Aye. Stephen Booker.
Aye.
Joseph Chen.
Aye.
Michael Clausen, Kathleen Goforth. Aye. Mele Himuli,
Aye.
Aurelio Pizar,
Aye.
Gail Lee,
Aye.
John McKenna,
Aye.
Jason Mendelson,
Aye.
Cheryl Shao. Aye. Remy Tan,
Aye.
Robert Whitehair.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Great, thank you. So the first thing on our agenda is my report. I will just say that 2 weeks ago, we presented our, if you recall, we made two recommendations last month. The first was the CAC favors the adoption of the DERMS program, recommends the approval of Lunar Energy to carry out the MSA and Scope 1 and Scope 2 contracts. I presented that to the board without comment from them. The second thing was we supported the integration of electrification solar storage program, focusing on how to use external financing to meet the goals of PCE. Similarly, I presented it without comment. I also reported on what we've done. I do not recall the rest of what happened at that meeting. I was only there for the first half, but you can always look up, and I encourage you to do so, the board's minutes, which are in YouTube form and transcribed, and you can jump to whatever part you're interested in and bring that back for comment. And we've discussed for future meetings, we will go back and look at the tracker. So hopefully at the next meeting, we'll be able to review where we're at with various things, be able to ask questions about that. And Stephen asked earlier, but I'll put on the record, the plan, as Vanessa wrote us, is to have a meeting in July and then potentially have the August meeting vacated by the board. We've requested that we find out the final status on that sooner rather than later. And I'm sure they will communicate with us as soon as possible. But I'm saying that as preview for things you want to get done, maybe put on the July meeting at the end of this meeting, so we can get ready for that in anticipation of a potential hiatus in August. And that is my report. Is there any public comment on that report? In the room, online?
I don't
Okay.
see any public comment.
Great.
today.
And being none, then do you want to introduce Melanie? You want me to do it? The next thing is our overview of the electric vehicle ready program, which will be led, go ahead.
Sure, led by my colleague Melanie Jasper here, who has some very useful experience in installing EV charging. And so she has been leading up a really amazing program of installing EV charging in multifamily buildings especially, and will be telling us more about that tonight.
All right, can you guys all hear me okay online, or do I need to? Okay. That's not me.
You guys online hear her? Robert, Jen?
You guys hear me okay on there?
Yes, I can hear you well. Thank you.
I hear you well too. Thank you.
All right, hi, everybody. Thank you for letting me join you this evening. My name is Melanie Jasper, and I run our EV Ready, which is our EV charging program here at Peninsula Clean Energy. And so here we go. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a couple things. So first is just a general update and about the program. It might be old news to some of you. It might be new, brand new to some of you. So I'll just give a general program overview. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the strategies that we're currently employing, which are focused on lowering costs and reducing barriers for EV charging. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about a future opportunity that's coming up, which is mainly we're going to be releasing a fairly large contract RFP for our main technical assistance consultants on this program. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then there's an opportunity as well if someone from this committee wants to get more involved in that. Okay, so first, as a little bit of background, so why is PC involved in EV charging? Why do we care? So we know that, you know, transportation, especially combustion engine vehicles, they're a huge part of our carbon emissions, and it's a huge part of our state transportation goals to electrify and increase the adoption of EVs. California has set some pretty aggressive state targets in terms of, you know, we want no new vehicle sales by 2035 to be EVs. And from working backwards from there, we've come to some numbers as far as like how much charging is needed California-wide to support this eventual rollout of EVs. And we still are quite far from those targets. Statewide, we only have about 10% of the chargers we need, by 2030. Countywide, that looks like about 5,000 out of 7,000, maybe slightly higher, but still in a rough position in terms of, we have a far way to go to install more chargers. And there's kind of this critical challenge. So when it comes to putting chargers in, especially in those more critical sectors like apartments and condos where we don't see a lot of EV charging access so far, we hit this chicken or the egg scenario, right? Where folks are saying, well, we don't have many EV drivers here. Do we really need that many EV chargers? On the flip side, we know that someone is much more likely to choose to purchase an EV if they know they have a place to plug in that vehicle at home. So it's kind of, we're building infrastructure with the mindset of once we build it, they will come. And we are seeing now already at properties where we've installed EV chargers, where there's an uptick in adoption and people feeling empowered to go EV after they know that they have a charger. All right, so what does this look like? A little bit more detailed. So when people think of EV charging today, I think the typical picture is these level 2 like charging stations. We're still thinking about gas cars, we're thinking about a gas station, I'm gonna sit, plug in and fuel up. I'm gonna get into a bit more why this is not the best solution, especially for multifamily specifically. This sort of option, it's overbuilt, it's more expensive, and when you think of this kind of gas station model of someone coming in and swapping out, switching places, that's not the ideal situation for residential, for multifamily, right? Most people want to come home, plug in their car and forget about it. If I have to come home after a long day at 8 p.m., plug in my car, and then 4 hours later, remember to come out and swap my vehicle around or change it because someone else wants to use the charger. I mean, this is how you might end up with residents yelling at each other, banging each other's doors at 11 p.m. saying, hey, I need to use the charger, get out of here. It starts to cause problems once demand exceeds the number of chargers. So what do we want instead? I'm gonna get a lot more into this, but this is a huge focus of our problem, is instead identifying those solutions that can help us get to a more ubiquitous one-to-one charging and a more positive charging experience. So if you picture a driver in a single family home, right? Their home charging setup often looks something like what's shown there on the left. This is just a charger. It's the home charging cable. It's what comes with your vehicle already, and it's plugged into a standard wall outlet. So what we're doing with our assigned outlet chargers, something like the smart outlets shown there, that this is 2 outlet companies that we work with in this program. So we're kind of able to bring that experience to multifamily by instead installing a higher quantity of these outlet chargers, one in every parking space. We're able to have that same experience that a single family home driver enjoys, where I just come home, I plug in my car, it charges, I forget about it. Okay, so how are we making this happen? So this comes into the EV Ready program and what our program is offering. There's 2 main aspects of our EV Ready program. The first is a free technical assessment. So we'll meet with and work with property owners one-on-one to identify the needs, the demand for charging on their site, and do an analysis of what's possible, like what can their electrical infrastructure support at this site. Additionally, we provide financial incentives. So, our incentives are all per port based incentives. So we're helping encourage folks to install more charging ports, because the more ports they get, the higher the incentive. And that financial incentive is often just what moves the needle. It's what makes a property owner and manager say, okay, this seems like now is the right time to install charging. We've installed over 1,700 ports already, about 2/3 of those are at multifamily. And we have some 4,000 more ports worth of projects currently somewhere in our construction pipeline. Okay, this is just quickly our incentives. The key things to note here, as I said, and I apologize, it's a little small. Our incentives are per port, and the only other thing I draw attention to here is that there's no cap currently for incentives for level 1 or level 2 outlets. And the reason we're doing this is because, again, we're able to encourage those projects to really go big for charging and install a lot of outlets at a very low cost per outlet. And then in terms of eligible property types, I'm talking mostly about multifamily today, because that is one of the hardest to reach segments for EV charging. However, it's worth noting that our program also works with employee parking and all other publicly accessible locations. So that might mean city garages, that might mean a church or another faith-based group that wants to offer a few chargers in their garage, or it could mean any other hotel, any other sort of location that's interested in EV charging. Okay, so I just talked a lot of program details, what we're working here, and I've started to throw information out about different types of charging. So I'm gonna take a step back, give us the charging types overview here. So there's a few different charging types that I'm going to talk about. So first is level 1, where we've described this as like a faucet. You also will hear people describe it sometimes as a trickle charge. This is like your standard, I come into my home and I plug into a regular outlet. The second is low power level 2. We might refer to this as like a garden hose, right? You're now getting a pretty steady stream of current. Full power level 2, I think people have this idea of level 2 being like the standard for EV charging, but actually it really is quite a bit of a fire hose. It's really a pretty full power charge going into that electric vehicle. And then there's DC fast charging, which is a whole nother realm in itself. It's a waterfall worth of power. And I think this analogy is important because when we're talking about what level of charging is needed in different settings, it's important to keep this scale in mind. We don't need a waterfall for every single person's home charger. And I get this question a lot, like multifamily, like property owners will come to us and they'll say, we want 2 fast charging stations. That sounds great. And it's just not realizing that if they're going to put in those fast charging stations, they need to put a waterfall level of infrastructure behind it. And it's just not practical for that setting. In the same way, instead, you could run 100 faucets. You have 100 level 1 chargers there. So what does this actually look like when I'm talking about outlets? So again, a level 1 outlet is your standard, home electrical outlets, what's here on the tables and all of that. There are smart outlets, which I think I have some photos of throughout this slide, which I could get into later, but the idea, even if it's a smart outlet being installed, it's still it's this standard outlet just with a billing functionality layered on. The other options are something like would be a low power or full power level 2 charger. So those are the outlet types that are shown here on the right. And I'll just share with you that almost all, I actually believe it is now all EVs sold today come with both charging types, typically a level 1 and level 2 connector, and a charging cable, something that is shown on the left. And so this is something that anyone who drives an EV typically will have a cable set. And if not, you can also get these online for a couple $100. Okay, so with that in mind, going into this outlet, so we're pushing more of the outlet options again, because we want that slower, steady charge. So we could put more outlets in, kind of more bang for our buck, so to speak. And we're seeing a lot of success in doing this. This idea of low power and more outlet charging is really starting to gain a lot of traction. And we're seeing several customers in our service territory really go big. So this is our really exciting news. Our first project, I think, isn't even on here. It was in East Palo Alto with 92 ports. We then have all these next 3 going on behind it. We have 140 ports at Edgeview Terrace. I believe that's in Daly City. Bayview is in Millbrae, and then Peninsula Pines in South San Francisco. And what all these larger projects have in common is that they've installed an outlet in every single parking space. So every driver, every apartment, every resident has their own assigned outlet, their own assigned charger. And for us, this is really the goal, like this is the end goal that we're trying to get to. And we are looking at these as a shining example of what's possible, you know, and going bigger for our customers. Great, so that's some of our big successes and just about the program in general. I'm gonna get into a few more specific strategies here. And also, I'm gonna try and leave, there should be a good chunk of time available at the end too for questions. Okay, so our key strategies, the first is something we're generally gonna call right sizing. So right sizing is it's a bit of a catch-all term and we've used it throughout our programs team. But what right sizing needs really is going back to don't overbuild. You know, we don't need to put in a waterfall in every parking lot. So first is what's our customer needs? You know, what level of charging is needed to meet that need and what's the demand at that property? And then it's our approach there. So first, let's use whatever electrical capacity is there on the site. So whatever our first project we're going to recommend to a customer, it's going to be something that avoids any major service upgrades or any major infrastructure added to the project. And then third is to upsize only when needed. So if we do need to bring in more electrical capacity to this site, how can we size it appropriately? And if we're going to do that in that scenario, that's then planned for a larger project. So it makes it worth their while to upsize. So again, with right sizing, it leads itself naturally to low power level 1 charging. I've been more commonly saying level 1 or low power level 2. I'll say that's also possible here, but really what it means is by sizing for a low power solution, you can put in much more within an available capacity. So we'll go into this project site, say, okay, they have 400 amps available on the site, and historically we're only using 100 of it. What can we use with those additional 300 amps that are available? How many chargers can we put in there? So as far as daily driving needs too, I will say when talking about low level charging or level 1 charging, you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, well, that's not enough for my vehicle. Like that's just, that's so slow. It's gonna take me 40 hours to charge my vehicle. And to that, I always say a few things. One, do you drive your vehicle to empty every day? I think no. I think very few, unless you're an Uber or Lyft driver, chances are you are not coming home with a completely empty vehicle every day. And two, I mean, I think almost every one of us, our car is parked at home more than 40 hours a week. We are not in our car out driving every night, all day, all night long. That's more than enough time that the car is parked there overnight where it can charge at that level 1 charging. And in fact, we did a study looking at this a few years ago. Saw that in San Mateo County, average daily travel is about 30 miles. And some 99.8% of drivers were able to meet their full daily average needs with a level 1 charger at home. So really what we do see this as the ideal home solution. And as far as an all around everyday solution, when I do go drive to Tahoe and back for a weekend of skiing, that's when I expect, okay, I'm gonna stop and top off at a fast charger somewhere along the way. But for all my getting around town, getting to and from work, to my friend's house, to grandma's house, so on, I'm gonna be all right with my level 1 home charger. Okay, so again, yeah, level 1 meets the driving needs. The other highlight, I would say here, it's a lot less expensive than level 2 or other charging options. So for example, here at the bottom, the statistic, 2,500 compared to about 13,000. This is compared to other programs we've seen in the state. So that's looking at what, like 4 times cheaper for level 1 charging when compared to level 2. These photos on the right are some examples of how they look actually installed. And again, I love that it's a small form factor, it's something non-invasive, non-intrusive, and the residents ultimately are the ones plugging in their own cable. So it's one less thing that the property owner has to manage. How am I doing on time here? Okay. All right, here's some more examples of outlets installed through our program. Okay, and now this gets me into strategy number 2. So I've talked about right sizing and how this is our approach to apartments. Strategy 2 is how we really get the word out there and how we help people understand what their options are. Like I said, many property owners are at that, just give me a couple fast chargers level of charging. You know they want chargers, they know their residents are starting to ask for it, but they really don't know, you know, what's involved in installing something. So this is why a major part of our program is offering this free technical assistance. This is where we will really work with and meet with property owners one-on-one. And we'll do that evaluation of each site, you know, property by property, what specifically is possible at this site. In addition, so we typically present our customers with 3 solutions. 1 will be exactly what they came to us asking for. 2 will be as many chargers as we can put in within the existing service without adding any additional capacity. And 3 will be, what would it look like to go ubiquitous charging and put an outlet or a charger in every space? And then we'll work with them to select the option that makes sense. I will say too, we're seeing more properties go with like a phase design, like, or a condo or HOA. Who wants to opt into phase 1? Great, we're gonna put in 10 chargers now and then plan for another 20 in a couple years down the line. And then we'll connect them with different contractors and support throughout the installation and permitting process. We've seen that, statistically speaking, multifamily properties that go through our technical assistance triple the size of the project that they're looking to install. So this is how we know that we're really helping customers understand how to go bigger and understand how to make that pencil out and make it more economical. This is just a snapshot of what it looks like, that free technical assistance. Like I said, we'll provide an evaluation for each particular project site. This does involve sending one of our representatives from our consultants onto the project site where they'll actually take photos, look at the electrical infrastructure present, and put together what is actually a quite detailed report of their charging options. Okay, and that's the wrap up of strategy 2. Last strategy I'm gonna cover today. This one gets a bit technical, so bear with me here. So most outlets installed in multifamily, it's something like shown here, is a smart outlet. The reason that it's a smart outlet is because when these are installed, they're installed on the property owner's electrical meter. So that means the property owner is getting a bill and they need this smart outlet technology to get reimbursed. That's like the credit card reader, right? That's how they get the drivers to pay them back for the electricity used. The problem with any smart outlet, whether it's a smart charger or a smart outlet, is that there's some service fee associated with that, right? And the price, the actual dollar amount, what's paid by the driver when they swipe their card, is completely up to the property owner's discretion. So most property owners, they're trying to break even. They're trying to cover their costs. But we don't know. We've seen cases where in their own private, you know, assigned parking space, a resident is being asked to pay 50% more, 60% more than what average charging prices are, what electrical prices are. You know, our electrical prices might be around 30 cents, but it's not uncommon for a property owner to look at a local fast charger and say, well, this is 60 cents. I'm gonna set mine at 60 cents. And so that's our next challenge with these solutions. Okay, now someone has access to a charger in their parking spot. How do we make sure that that charger isn't ripping them off? Right, and so we're looking now at new strategies to potentially avoid those fees altogether. And one of those is through this could be through either direct metering or virtual sub-metering. So again, when you're charging in a single family home, you're gonna plug into your own outlet and that electricity usage is gonna go right to your home electric bill. In apartments, you're gonna have some third-party charger billing system reimbursing the property owner there. That can actually be avoided completely by directly wiring the chargers to the residents' electric meters. This is a fairly new technology. So yeah, this is what this looks like, right? So in an apartment complex, you'll have a meter bank. It's like a whole bunch. You'd see this walking around your garage or something, right? Each one of these meters on the left, going back, on the left here are billed to individual apartment unit. This one on the right, that's your house meter. That's what's billed to the apartment owner or like the property owner, right? So what we're doing, this is your typical installation for EV charging. It's here, it's on the property owner's meter. What we're looking at doing instead is installing them here on the tenant's meters. Now, this is a bit more complicated upfront and it's a bit more expensive because as you can imagine, you're not just tapping into one meter now, you're tapping into 20 different individual meters. But the advantage is that once it's installed, so on the left is what it looks like installed, there's no billing involved. The property owner doesn't have to get involved in that billing solution, doesn't have to use a smart outlet at all. It's just a standard basic outlet when the electricity use is now going directly to the apartment's bill. So on the left, you can see that little line of boxes down there in the middle, so that's this load balancing device that can be used to connect to each individual property's meter. Very cool new technology. It basically will sit there and monitor the apartment unit so that it only runs the EV charger when there's electricity available. So if I have an apartment that's already designed to use 80 amps and that's all I have for space, I could still put a 40 amp charger on my 80 amp unit. You'd think that would overwhelm it, but it'll sit there and wait because it has this load management device. And as soon as I turn on my dishwasher, my dryer and everything
Wow.
else at home, it'll temporarily shut down the EV charger. And then when those things finish their cycle, the EV charger will come back online. So that's one new option that we're seeing, and we have our first round of installs today or just being completed with this direct wiring option. And it's great. You could imagine that HOAs, COAs especially, they love this because there's no, oh, we have to figure out what price to charge ourselves and get reimbursed and pay the HOA. It's just physically installed onto each individual apartment unit. And then it's done, it's being built to that apartment. No one has to think about it again. The next option, which is just a TBD coming soon, is a new technology called virtual sub-metering, which basically means everything I described about having to physically wire the chargers to each apartment can go away and can be done virtually. You can have these chargers, the smart chargers again, be installed on the house meter, and they will send that electric use directly to PG&E and through PG&E PCE as well. And it'll show up directly on the customer's bill. The advantage of virtual sub-metering as well is that if a customer is on a care bill or fare or any other like on-bill benefits, they would get the benefit of that discounted rate for their EV charging usage. So this is a new technology we're closely monitoring as well, and excited to see what's coming out of that space. All right, last item here is our upcoming RFP. So all of this great stuff that I talked about our program, I'm not doing it all alone. I have a partner here on this program, which is currently Clear Result. So Clear Result has worked with us since the program launched in about 2020. And they're the partner that provides the direct one-on-one technical assistance and support. So they are structuring the meetings with the customer throughout that process. They're sending someone onto the sites to do that evaluation, and they're the ones who are managing our contractors, the bidding and all of that for our customers. So, and with that contract, this is one of our longest running contracts. Like I said, it's been around about 5 years, and so it's going to be going out to RFP again. This RFP is expected mid-June. It's actually going to be posted quite soon here. Responses at the end of July and interviews later in August this summer. So this is going to be a pretty large contract. We expect about 2 to 3 million over the next 5 years. Again, this is a major service. They've worked with over 250 properties that they've already delivered solutions representing those few thousand parts that I mentioned we have in progress. And so, yeah, this is an important new progress for, or important new project for us, RFP coming soon. And my offer to the group is that if there's anyone on this committee who's interested in sitting on the review and being a part of the selection committee, we have a space available for that. So yeah, I guess please let me know. The time commitment is gonna be, it depends on how involved you want to be. If you just want to sit in on the interviews, probably about 8 hours in August. If you want to also be full, like reading all of the responses and getting into that level of detail, maybe a few additional hours. Yeah, email Vanessa and Kristen if you're interested, and they'll put you in touch with me.
What sort of, what would your ideal, committee member look like? Melanie, any kind, anything that would be particularly valuable to you?
Oh, I don't know. I am not familiar with your guys' experience and interest in this. I think I would just be looking for someone who's interested in like the technical evaluation process and like how we're ensuring like a quality of customer service. I would say like the big things we're looking for our consultant, so either whether we select a new consultant or we end up going with Clear Result again, depends on the responses. We are looking for a few things. As a program, we're looking to scale. This is something I didn't quite mention here, but we're looking to grow to about 2 times our current thorough PERT. So we want to have a contractor that can handle that expectation. We want to have a contractor that has a lot of experience in this, like providing technical assistance already. And we want to have a contractor that's going to really center our customers' experience. So I would say maybe that's where I would look for the CAC member the most, to like kind of be that voice of our customers that are going to be going through the program and working with our consultants, in terms of making sure that they're having, you know, an offering that's gonna be accessible to all our customers and valuable to property owners looking to work through the program.
Do you think of your customer as the building owner or the car owner?
In this case, yeah, so we're a little unique because we really are the building owner as our customers, or at least the decision maker. In some cases, it's not necessarily the person that owns the building. Maybe it's been a job that's been given off to a property manager or someone, but yeah, it's someone who is a decision maker at the property level. So yeah, it's a little different as opposed to like our residential programs, or as opposed to like our used EV program where we're really targeting the drivers. This one's we're really working with at the property level. Yeah, but yeah, any other questions about the program? RFP, yeah.
I heard, from the building electrification subcommittee today, we had our meeting, and Raphael said there were some issues with project management on some of these subcontractors. So I'm just wondering, with Clear, is there an issue with project management, getting behind failing to deliver on time correctly?
Yeah, I would say like overall, we're satisfied with Clear Result. They've been a good contractor and a good partner with us on this program. I would say like, I think our biggest questions and like what we're looking to evaluate with Clear Result compared to other contractors would be like, are they just the best, like most competitive offering out there? I mean, maybe. And then I guess too, like, is our program outgrowing them? We are looking, they are very in the detailed with each specific customer, which has been great and what's needed. But I don't know, maybe there's other approaches that are looking a little bit more big picture, or just other approaches that could convince us that they could scale further. Cause like I said, we are trying to see if we can double the program throughput. And so I think that's gonna be a big question when comparing Clear Result to other offerings, is like, do we think that they're the ones that are gonna be able to grow the program and get us to that next like level of scale?
It's also just a good practice for public agencies, if you've had a contract that's been going on for a while, to put it out to RFP every few years to see, are you still getting the best? So it's a common practice for public agencies.
Vanessa, I see Robert. Robert, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. It's not really a question, it's a comment. It's just many congratulations. A lot of us on the committee were involved in charging selection and multifamily stuff 4 or 5 years ago. You've come so far with this. I really appreciate what you've done. Hats off to the staff. And I really support what Kirsten just said. It's a good idea every once in a while to step back and do we have the right people? You know, can we change what they're offering? All those kinds of things. So it's not a question, it's just a comment of congratulations all around for a good program.
Yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go for it. Go ahead. I'm like, hold on.
Well, I want to echo Robert's comment. I think this is a fantastic program. I mean, we need it so badly, and I think PC has been a real leader on this. Thank you. I'm curious about the load on buildings. Like, I love that you're promoting trickle charge and lower power, you know, having many chargers that offer lower power and slower charges. That as more tenants get EVs, are you able to monitor the load on the building to make sure it fits within that property's capacity?
Yeah, I would say we only have a handful of properties so far that are seeing adoption to the point where like we're concerned about them reaching their max capacity, but it is something that we're somewhat tracking in terms of like, I would say we more so try to counter this on the front end, and that we're recommending the trickle charge, the low power solutions. When we do recommend level 2, or when a customer wants to install level 2 or higher powered chargers, we're always recommending they be installed with load management, wherever it makes sense. So that way, when they do get to the point where all those chargers are fully in use, there's already a system in place that's able to monitor and manage those chargers. But yeah, it's definitely something that as we have more chargers installed, we are intending to keep an eye on and track.
Great, thank you.
For the multifamily places, I've always wondered this, and maybe this is easy. When you have, a lot of them have carports where the cars parked nowhere near an existing power source that I'm aware of. Is that prohibitive to this? Or is that part of the program where it's like, we've got to get it? Maybe there's a street light that's the nearest connected power.
Yeah, usually you do have to run from wherever like the main power in is, but it's definitely something we look at. Like every once in a while, you will have a property where it's like the main electrical supply is here, and then across the street, there's an overflow parking lot or something, and that's where everyone parks. In those cases, we're more so gonna work with them to identify a new power drop, like a place where we can bring in a
That
new
is a
power
possibility
source.
in the program.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we definitely can still support that, but we try to avoid it. You know, where possible, we want to run from the existing power. But yeah, once it's a certain distance, then, you know, it might become impractical and we can work. And I will say that that is part of why we offer the one-on-one site evaluation, because as much as we can put out standard guidelines and standard best practices, there's always going to be these unique situations for each property.
Encourage us to do that though, if you have a place we think, have them at least do the site visit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, when we offer the site visit, you know, totally for free and it's non-commitment, it's really just helping a property owner understand what their options are, right? Not everyone who goes through technical assistance installs chargers. I think like about 50% of them are moving through, maybe a bit higher than that, maybe about a third drop out, I should say. But people come back later too. Now that we've been around a few years, we'll see we're like a year later. A property manager, oh, hey, we worked with you back in 2022, 2023. Let's pick this back up, you know? Yeah.
So does the load balancer, is that part of the rebate?
Yeah, we include it as an eligible program cost. So ultimately, I mean, what we try to do with our technical assistance is size the project such that our rebates will cover as much of it as possible, right? I would say typically we're covering about 60 to 70% of project costs on average with our rebates, which said is great. It's definitely a significant chunk of it, but because our incentives are structured per port, when you go bigger, more of the project costs are covered. So actually, some of these larger projects, for example, I know the Bayview condos for certain, actually ended up paying zero out of pocket completely. 100% of the project costs were covered by our incentives. So what that means, right, so our incentives $2,000 per outlet, that means we were able to drive the total project cost low enough that it was less than 2,000 per outlet. Our incentives covered the whole project. So yeah, it's great. We're trying to like, that's part of how we're encouraging projects to go bigger, with structuring it that way.
So the second question.
Oh, yeah.
So the low carbon fuel standard allows an entity to claim the carbon credits for energy from electric vehicle charging. And I wondered how that's going to be incorporated or used or not used.
I am not an LCFS expert. My understanding is that while we do like have that right to claim the credits, we just haven't really cashed it in because of, I guess, the fluctuating prices. It wasn't a big value add for us last time we looked at it, so. Yeah, we still reserve that right. It could change in the future, but for now, we're not claiming any of those credits.
Okay,
Yeah.
because my experience was that the vendors would claim it and
Yeah,
then the property owners could not. So it's available to be claimed, but if it's already claimed by the vendor, you can't, the property owners can't.
yeah, I think like technically speaking, if the vendor agrees with us to get our incentive, like we have the first dibs, but I know that actually some of our vendors have asked to claim them and we've said, okay, yes, we're not claiming it for this project, go ahead. But generally like, yeah, we haven't been involved in that yet.
Because once you install them, you lose that claim.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I first looked at it, it was like $200 a credit, and it's
Mhm.
dropped a lot since then, but it could go back up again, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know we've been monitoring it, like checking back, so I don't know, it might be something we get back to, but so far hasn't been on my radar.
Cheryl, Joseph, and Kevin.
So it sounds like there's a sweet spot for a project, if you want to get to the you guys cover it all point. But
Yeah.
is there a minimum size for a project that, multifamily housing you'll consider?
Yeah, we don't have a minimum number of chargers they can install, so if they want to install only one charger, they can, and occasionally that has happened, or they only install one or two, something, but as far as project size, just to qualify for the program, it is multifamily units of 4 or more.
Okay.
So yeah, if it's a duplex or a triplex, unfortunately, they won't qualify, though, I mean, if they call on the phone and get to our info line, I'm always happy to have a conversation, because most of the time in those cases, running just a standard outlet out to the parking spaces will cost them like $1,500 or something for a couple of outlets, and it's a very cheap, practical solution for them already.
And then the other part of my question is, where are you trying to put them, and are you soliciting building owners, or are they finding you?
Yeah, so actually we are doing as much marketing as we can right now to just get, we're always looking, like I said, we're looking to double our program throughput right now, so we're doing as much outreach as we can to property owners. This has looked like sending out mailers to folks. We have a series of webinars that I think is great to point people to. It's been bringing in some folks, but I would say lately it's been about 50% like marketing outreach that we've been doing through webinars, through mailers and other informational sessions, and about 50% just organic word of mouth or folks Googling and finding our information organically.
Okay, so you guys don't have specific goals as to how many to put in each jurisdiction or anything like that?
No, when we started out, I know that we had like a particular, I think it was like 4,000 ports target, which we're gonna be on track to go past that, but we've already decided that, we want to keep this program going into the foreseeable future. So that was also part of the RFP discussion of why to not just ask for a contract discussion, but go for a full RFP. We want this to be a longer running program and to reach more people. So yeah, we're totally just trying to put as many in wherever possible, wherever they're needed. I would love, I mean, at some point, I'd like to, as we get more buildings in, maybe do a bit more of analysis of like, are there gaps or places we're missing? I will say, like, I do look at reports of chargers installed like by city and, just where we're engaged and less engaged in our service territory. But so far, there's no specific goals as far as, in this like geographic, area or another. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just,
I have two disjointed questions.
Okay.
The first one is just simple math, right? So Edgeview, 140 ports, that's 280,000 in rebates and incentives. And so they can find someone who can do all the work for 280,000, then just fully covered, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
The second part of the question is kind of, how effective has it been for the building owners? Have you gotten some feedback about, the residents who's, starry-eyed, wants to live here in this one place, and they said, do you have an EV charger? Can I use it? That'll actually affect my decision.
Yeah, I mean, I will say we're starting to hear from property owners that like this is a question residents are asking. How much, it depends on the property owner and we'll see. I've had property owners, we had a great interview, which was on our webinar, it was live, and I loved this property owner because he got up there and he really said, I wasn't interested in installing EV chargers at all at my properties, but just made economic sense thanks to PC, and so I went for it. I thought, okay, I mean, if that's what it is, great. But then I've had some of the other side, I had a conversation with a quite a large apartment complex up in Daly City, and they were saying, oh no, this is built into our like model for turnover of looking at, apartment rental income loss due to unoccupancy, and we are seeing like this demand for EV chargers is part of like people not choosing our apartments or part of people like turning over apartments. And so, so I would say some property owners are really engaged in saying, yes, we see the payoff for EV charging. Others are, well, I guess if there's money on the table, we'll do it. But yeah, it just still kind of depends.
Thank you.
Cheryl already asked my main question, which was about how are you marketing this? My lesser question is, do you have a sense of what's the universe of multifamily houses, units? How many units are there in these, the target of 4 or more throughout your service territory?
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you like this is something in my years since I've been here. I would love to have a number like of just this is how many units for more. I can't say that I have it exactly, but we are working to pull from different like, tax data, public records and different info. I would guess it's somewhere about 6,000 properties out there that like would qualify for the program. So then of that, we have some like 400 or 500 that have engaged with us at some point. Which is, okay, not a bad percentage there that we've touched on. But yeah, to me, I'm thinking, and truly, I know that there are some properties that have installed chargers without our help. But ideally, that number would be 0. I mean, because it's free money on the table of a property doesn't have to go through our technical assistance in order to just get incentives for their project site. So, I mean, I would hope that any property looking to add chargers is going to come through and take advantage of our program. So in that sense, we've maybe touched on, what is that, like 9% or something of properties out there. We're getting there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanna, Remy, go, and then I wanna take public comment if we have any.
So quick one, how much funding do you have? Like, it's 2,000 per charter, right? So how many chargers do you have annually on this program, and who's gonna meet the need? And then secondly, in your analysis on these properties, does it make sense to have maybe 1 or 2 level 2 chargers in case somebody needs to charge a car more quickly, and then the rest level 1?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to both. So as far as how much, I'm gonna speak in dollar amounts because I think that's easier for me to think about. I know over the last few years, we've just about doubled in incentives that we've paid out to the community each year. Last year was about 2.4 million in total incentives. So I think the year before that, it was just under 1 million. The year before that, about 500,000. We have a 4 million a year that we could spend on this program. So to date, we have not been spending all the incentives. we've set aside for this program, which is why I'm spending so much time on marketing. So I'm always open to more marketing ideas for this program. Because really, I'm trying to get the news out there. You know, we see that there is more of a need for EV charging than, you know, what we're even currently meeting. And as good as we're doing, I mean, we want to double it again going into the next year. Sorry, what was your second question?
What was the second about,
Having a couple level two
couple level
chargers.
two.
Oh, yeah.
Fast chargers.
I would.
You know, maybe if you have solar, you know, on the carports, that helps, that.
Yeah, I would say like, we have seen a couple properties look to doing this. There's one in particular where when we did their assessment, they actually had enough capacity to direct wire chargers onto all of the individual unit meters and put in like 3 or 4 shared level 2 chargers and guest parking. And so they were looking at doing both. That's not very common. I would say, you know, most of the time it's one or the other, but like as a eventual future solution, I could definitely see that happening. I could also see that as a solution for charger or for buildings where there's more than one parking space per dwelling unit. So I could see a case for saying, okay, even though each dwelling unit has 2 parking spaces, we're gonna let them share one outlet. You know, they live in the same building or the same apartment, they'll figure it out. And then maybe additionally having shared chargers there. But I would say like for the most part, we really focus on shared charging for public access and workplace chargers and the assigned charging for multifamily. And it's really about that driver experience. Just being able to come home, plug in and forget about it, not move cars
Yes,
around.
San Mateo, you don't have situations like San Francisco where there might be one parking space for every 2 or 4 units.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's even a different scenario. I mean, in that case, you kind of do have to do like a first come, first serve model or something. They'd probably work it out with however they're already working out those parking spaces as far as who gets access to them. But I will say like from our perspective too, the first come, first serve kind of model for shared charging. It's inequitable. It's gonna favor those who work from home or are just home or have shorter commutes. You know, the people that get home first, they're gonna have first access to the chargers, and someone with a longer commute might find them all taken, right?
Before we see public comment, I know Diane, Kathleen, Robert have done the CAC support for other RFPs, and I think it's one of the most rewarding things you guys have done. So if anybody's interested in that, I would encourage you to reach out to Kirsten or Vanessa and see if that's an option. And then, is there any public comment? Oh, please, go ahead.
Thank you. Do I need to turn something on here? Should I just talk?
Just, okay, fine. I don't know.
Talk loud.
Come up to the table.
Oh, there's the.
There we go.
Thank you.
No problem.
So
Thanks.
it's great to have the in-person public comment.
Great. Good evening, Brian Schmidt, Menlo Spark. Great presentation. I had a comment about direct charging and a question about virtual sub-metering. For the direct wiring, the issue, which I think we started to explore, is you basically have to have assigned parking with assigned parking spot assigned to different units. Otherwise, you can't wire up 40 different units to 40 different 40 different parking spots. And if you want to reduce the amount of parking or try and get us towards a world where not everybody has a car, then that's a problem. And so that's where virtual sub-metering comes in, where you wouldn't need to have assigned parking. I was excited to learn a little bit about virtual sub-metering, I think several months ago, I think at one of these meetings. What was a little surprising to me to see today was it's coming soon. I thought we had it. So can we have any more of an update on when that's happening and any type of encouragement for getting that as soon as possible? Thank you.
Can I speak to this questions? Okay. Yeah, no, you're right that direct wiring, it only works in those situations where that one parking space always belongs to one dwelling unit. We see it as very popular for HOAs where spaces are deeded to one apartment, and for smaller rentals, we work with a lot of like 4, 6, 8, 10 unit rentals, like single owners, smaller buildings, and they just want the easiest like billing solution. So they're also really finding it, you know, it's very popular for them to choose the direct wiring option. As far as virtual sub-metering, so the protocols and the possibility is there. I believe it was released at the end of last year, or beginning of this year, that PG&E, put the rate tariff and all the connection protocol information is available online. But that doesn't mean there are technologies that were capable of actually doing it yet. So you probably heard a presentation. I wasn't there for that one, but I'm guessing it was Philip talking about, we actually put together a grant to fund some metering, like a pilot project to encourage the development of this technology, because we do see it as a major possibility and cost saving possibility for our customers. And the last I checked, about a month or so ago, I think there were like 2 other companies that were on a list of qualified products that now have products that are capable of virtual sub-metering. So it is really just barely here. Yeah, but I think something will become much more common in the next couple of years.
Yes, I see David Morrow, you have your hand raised. I will invite you to unmute and you can give your public comment.
Okay, I guess you can hear me.
Yes.
Good evening, committee. Thank you for taking my question here. I want to commend Peninsula Clean Energy for their EV Ready program. I do believe that the low power is the way to go, and I think you're going to get a lot. You're going to get a lot more buy-in on this. So Melanie, you're doing a great job, and along with your support staff there. But I have a question for you. Stated that you have 1,700 chargers installed, and you got 4,000 in the pipelines, something like that. My question is, if you guys have availability of the contractors who've installed these, the number of chargers each contractor has installed, and the type of chargers they installed. Do you have a comprehensive list of that is available for the public?
We definitely record that information on a program level. I'd honestly have to check like what is the appropriate amount that can be made available to the public. I know we've like provided some reports for cities and other public partners. So in short answer, yes, I think I could provide you a report. I would just have to make sure I keep like the customer site specific level, like.
I'm not really interested at the sites, just the amount of, just the name of the contractors, the number of ports they have installed for you guys, and the type of chargers they have installed. So I don't need to know the locations of the where they have been installed. Because now with the $250,000 threshold of bringing it before the board of directors, I see that those things aren't coming before the board as they were before when it was $100,000. So there's been a kind of a information gap going on there, and we would just kind of like to know where, for a couple of reasons. We want to know where we stand in this, as far as what contractors are doing the work. And that what we need to do to get better so that we can probably capture more of the work. That's what we're after. Okay.
Right, yeah, I hear that. I don't know that report currently exists in the public record, but I think we could follow up in putting something together.
Okay, that would be great, Melanie. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Anything
you,
else?
Darren.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, no, I don't see any other public comments.
I did want to make a comment about the marketing, that we are doing a ribbon cutting ceremony at one of these charging installations, the one in East Palo Alto, Woodland Creek Condo Association, June 28th from 10 to noon in the morning. We're providing free breakfast. This is an open community event. So if you'd like to come check out one of these installations, we'll be ribbon cutting, we'll do a site tour. We'll have a small EV showcase. The idea is to do some EV education for the residents there. If they don't have an EV yet, they can learn about how you're gonna learn about them. We'll have, we're having climate resilient communities do some outreach in East Palo Alto and Bellhaven to get folks out there. And also some folks that are, some property owners and HOA managers from who are considering this program will be coming through and checking it out. So if you'd like to help us do some marketing, especially you all who are like nearby in Menlo Park, maybe help us get the word out of that, about that event. If you know, property managers, property owners, help us get them there so they can do the site tour, they can learn all about this and then sign up for the program. And then we're looking at doing ribbon cuttings in the fall for the even bigger program installations in Millbrae and South San Francisco. We're still working on those. But East Palo Alto, June 28th, 10 to noon, free breakfast. Come on by.
Could you just send us a little blurb?
Yes,
about it?
yes, send a
That'd be great.
blurb.
It's in the newsletter that goes out to all of us.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, sorry.
Got the blurb.
All right, good.
You've
Okay.
got the blurb.
John, you're up. Yes.
All right.
Oh, please, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's not a question, it's a comment. Before we had a meeting with, well, a presentation with Peninsula Clean Energy to show up to talking about the program, we're talking about the electrical cars. One of the customers bring the PG&E bill. And she said she called the PG&E and the bill is high because the son buy an electrical car. So PG&E say to the customer, well, the bill is gonna be high every month because you're charging the car in your home. Now the dilemma is the mother, well, you need to sell the car because I don't wanna pay that one. So the son is like he doesn't know what to do. So when I see the meter, it's a possibility that could be starting a home of how that son can keep the car. If the mother don't push him out of the house, it's like a very hard situation. Any advice, any recommendation?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Should I-
Pay his gas money to his mother to help pay the electrical bill.
Really?
Pay the money he used to be paying for gas to his mother to help pay the electrical bill, I'd say.
Yeah.
But the mother, she wanna know how much he's spending in electrical.
Okay.
You could put in like a smart charger or smart outlet that could definitely measure it and like they could pull it up on an app and see, okay, this is how much was used. But yeah, I don't know, if it were me, rather than installing something, I'd look at the bill before the son bought a car and the bill after. And say, okay, you owe me $150 a month or something like that, you know, I think you could get in close enough. And yeah, ultimately, like, he is now gonna have to pay something for that electricity, but it's probably cheaper than what he was spending on gas before.
They do make little meter for the 110s, you can put in the meter and you could track it and then you'll get the amount and then you could call PG and go, how much? This was, 150 kilowatts, what do I owe?
You can just look at the bill. Yeah, by times.
So that's the card up there. Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't like necessarily know exactly how much was used by the car, right? But yeah, you could guesstimate it.
Have the thing on the outlet, right, where the car plugged in.
Oh, yeah.
Right, you just take that reading times the kilowatt hour rate from PG&E and assume it's the off-peak rate, which you use to charge your car, and there it is, done. You're right back.
John, take it away.
All right. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for putting this on the agenda. Enjoy that beautiful picture. It's the last one you'll see. The rest of the slides are a bunch of boring text. And I will say that, this is probably not the most important issue facing Peninsula Clean Energy, but I think it's important enough to have a conversation about it. So thank you. Just a little background. Peninsula Clean Energy didn't choose to do banking with JP Morgan. It was a result of First Republic collapsing in April of 2023. And as a result, there was a bid for the assets of First Republic, which at the time they were worth like $6.8 billion. And JP Morgan outbid PNC and Wells Fargo. I think they bid about $10 billion to get the assets of First Republic. So, so this is not a criticism of Peninsula Clean Energy, it's just a sort of an exercise to look at JP Morgan's practices and determine if they're the right partner from a banking perspective going forward. And so, you know, in finding the right partner, I think you want to find someone that you can align your missions with. So I just put up the mission of each company here. It's not like JP Morgan's mission is to ruin the world, but you know, it may not align precisely with Peninsula Clean Energy, and there may be other banks that have missions that are more well aligned. So this data is from a report put out by the Rainforest Action Network and Sierra Club, a couple of very respected environmental organizations. And really it just talks about what the banking industry has done since the Paris Agreement. When it was known that we can no longer stand up or expand our fossil fuel infrastructure if we want to meet the goal of the Paris Agreement. So the 60 largest banks have financed the fossil fuel industry to the tune of $6.9 trillion since the Paris Agreement. And JP Morgan Chase is the worst of the 60. They've done $430 billion in financing. And I think even, you know, they're even increasing. So 38.7 billion in 2023 and went up to 40 billion, 0.8 billion in 2024. And even more concerning is that they're not just supporting the fossil fuel industry, they're helping it expand. They are the worst in terms of funding expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure. And that number increased as well from 2022 to 2023. And interestingly, you know, JP Morgan has about $4 trillion in assets. Their fossil fuel financing is 1% of their assets. And so you can look at that a couple different ways. It's like, well, it's such a small amount. Why don't you just not do it? Could be one thing. Or you could look at it, well, it's just a small amount, so why worry about it? Different ways of looking at it. But as you look at the banking industry and how they finance the fossil fuel industry, it can be loans, it can be underwriting bonds, corporate bonds, it can be facilitating mergers and acquisitions. Loans can be given for like a specific project or just a general purpose loan to a company. So it can be challenging to really understand like how that money is being used. But these are just sort of, rough picture numbers. And, the largest financiers are JP Morgan, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. Like I said before, they continue to finance the fossil fuel industry despite the evidence that we can no longer do that. As Bill McKibben puts it, it's quite annoying. He notes that it's like, it's somewhat understandable that someone like ExxonMobil continues to defy science. They really only know one thing. They know how to extract fossil fuels and set them on fire. But banks, they can do all sorts of things. They're experts in a lot of different ways and can use their assets to do good, as opposed to funding this issue of the fossil fuel industry. So, these are just some, the 60, wait, sorry. Okay, so back in 2021 at the Conference of the Parties in number 26 in Glasgow, the Net Zero Banking Alliance was formed. It was actually an initiative that was led by Mark Carney, who is now the Prime Minister of Canada. He was the UN envoy to climate and finance at the time. So it launched in April of 21, and 43 banks from 23 different countries committed to align their operational and attributable emissions from their portfolios with pathways that align with the Paris Agreement. And it peaked at 147 banks until all the major US and Canadian banks and some other banks started exiting, representing $27 trillion in assets. And it started with Goldman Sachs exiting, pretty much right after the election in 2024.
It's now down, like it peaked at 147, it's now down to 128 banks. And JP Morgan had joined it in October of 21, and then they exited. They followed Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, B of A, Morgan Stanley exited earlier this year. Their asset management group did the same thing as well. So there's concerns that this net zero banking alliance, how impactful is it now? As these larger banks leave, smaller banks are less inclined to, carry the weight of doing the right thing. And even concerningly, the alliance just in April dropped their mandatory requirement to align with the Paris Agreement of 1.5 degrees. So now you don't even have to be like, it's not even required to be a member to align with Paris. It's encouraged, but it's not required. And hopefully I didn't go too far into the weeds on this presentation, but once you start doing research, it's hard not to go down these rabbit holes. So another thing that I found from a report that was put out by Stand.Earth and the coordinator of Indigenous Nations of the Amazon Basin is, some of these companies, they purport to having these policies that are, all about sustainability and protecting what's important to us. But JP Morgan is one of 6 banks that's responsible for 46% of all oil and gas financing in the Amazon for the past 20 years. Their websites and reports and promotional materials give this impression that they're protecting the environment and human rights with their policies. But in fact, the policy that they have, 84% of the Amazon rainforest falls outside of their policy, and only 2% is actually protected by this policy. So it's a little bit of greenwashing, as we're all very familiar with. And there are a number of different ways that banks can sort of measure their emissions or their sustainability practices. These are all voluntary disclosures. So there can be a lot of confusion, and there can be a lot left to interpretation on how these metrics are defined and presented. One method is financed emissions, which is basically the emissions of the bank's client attributable to the banks through their lending and facilitation. There's 2 different ways you can measure that. There's absolute emissions, which basically uses measurement of greenhouse gases and assigns those emissions based on the amount of financing versus the financial value of the company being financed. There's also the physical emissions intensity measurement, which measures emissions in relation to the company's output. So like an oil and gas company would be measured by how much greenhouse gas is emitted for every unit of energy that their product creates. And companies can sort of lower their financed emissions, banks can lower their financed emissions by either reducing the amount of financing that they do to these fossil fuel companies, or working with the companies that they do finance to lower that company's emissions. And typically banks have not wanted to stop financing, so they try to do more of the let's get you to be a cleaner company kind of approach. Sustainable financing is another metric that can be used to, kind of measure a bank's performance. It's really just the value of the bank's financing activities that are linked to climate, environmental, or justice aligned purposes. Again, there's a lot left to interpretation there. There's a new metric that was put out by Bloomberg NEF and the New York City Office of Comptroller. Basically, it's called the Energy Supply Financing Ratio. And it's kind of a simpler way of the bank's financing, how much goes to low carbon sort of companies or zero carbon companies versus high carbon fossil fuel companies. And again, it's all this sort of how do you calculate these numbers? By JP Morgan's estimation, it's 1.29, meaning for every dollar that they finance in the high carbon sector, they finance $1.29 to low carbon, so like a higher number. But according to Bloomberg's metric, it's 0.8. So it's really hard to really kind of measure these numbers and then equate them to what the bank's really doing. And so I did also want to point out that JP Morgan does have sustainable development target that they established in April of 21. So over the next 10 years, their goal was to do sustainable financing of $2.5 trillion. There's sort of three categories that can be. It can be green, development finance, and community development. And specifically to their green initiative, which is focused on climate action, clean energy, and sustainable resource management, they want to do $1 trillion by 2030. The green sort of things that fall in that category are renewable and clean energy, like wind, solar, geothermal, clean technologies like fuel cells, energy storage, smart grids, carbon capture, zero emission vehicles and transit, green buildings with energy efficiency, sustainable foods such as regenerative agriculture, water management, pollution prevention, conservation, and biodiversity. So they want to dedicate $1 trillion by 2030 to those sorts of practices. Development finance is more just emerging economies, supporting them as they make the transition. And then community development is the third part of the sustainable development target, where they focus on financing low to moderate income communities, and that can or racial equity that can take the form of helping with home ownership, developing affordable housing, helping small businesses, and lending to community development financial institutions as well. So if you look at how JP Morgan's doing on this initiative, their target was to be, they should be at 665 billion through 2023. They are off pace and they are declining as the years go by. So they're not getting closer to their target. Same goes for the green number. They're off target and they're declining. And then, just a little concerning with the federal landscape that we have right now. Many companies are relooking at ESG and what kind of words do they use? And troubling, many companies are delaying their ESG report. And JP Morgan's report should have been out in April. They have said that they will issue a consolidated ESG and climate impact report later this year, but we'll see. And they're not alone. A lot of companies are delaying that sort of reporting. This is just sort of a real back of the napkin kind of a thing. If you look at JP Morgan, again, 4 trillion in total assets, 40 billion of it is going to fossil fuels. So 1% of their assets are going to financing the fossil fuel industry. And if you look at, so what is Peninsula Clean Energy's money? How's it being used by JP Morgan? Currently, as of March, Peninsula Clean Energy has $17.4 million in cash in their account with JP Morgan. So again, back to the napkin, maybe $175,000 of PCE's money is going to supporting something that is completely opposite of what they're trying to achieve. Next slide. So the question is now, what should Peninsula Clean Energy stay with JP Morgan or find another banking partner? So some options to consider. There are still 3 banks in the United States that are members of the Net Zero Banking Alliance: Amalgamated Bank, Ready Bank, which is in Puerto Rico, and Climate First Bank. Amalgamated is the largest of the 3 with $7.8 billion in assets. They've been around since 1923. I think it was born out of the garment industry back in that era. And then Climate First Bank, again, is based in Florida. They're smaller. They just started in 2021. They have a good name and they have $850 million in assets with a goal to get to 10 billion in the next 10 years. And they have some designations of like certified B Corp, 1% for the planet, the Global Alliance on Banking Values. And even though they're based in Florida, they do have customers in 49 states. Just real quick, a certified B Corp is a designation that's given by a global nonprofit called B Lab. And anybody that gets that certification, they have to meet a high level of social and environmental performance, transparency, and accountability. The Global Alliance for Banking on Values has 70 members worldwide. And to qualify, the organization has to be have a value-based mission, be a regulated bank, have a commitment at the CEO level, and have a minimum of 50 million in assets. And then the 1% for the planet designation is given to any business that gives 1% of their sales towards environmental causes. A little bit more, just kind of like some resources and thoughts. So bank.green is a website. They are the organization that designates a bank to be fossil-free certified. Green America is another website that has a lot of information on banking. PCE could look to local community banks or credit unions potentially. Again, PCE being a business may have some specific needs that they need from their banking partner that some of these community banks may not be able to offer, but I think it's worth looking into. Beneficial State Bank is one bank that kind of stood out. It was created by Tom Steyer back not too long ago. It's headquartered in Oakland. It's a certified B corporation. It's fossil-free certified. It has the Global Alliance for Banking on Values. It's a CDFI, which again is a community development financial institution, which means that 60% of its lending has to go to LMI communities. Beneficial State Bank actually exceeds that. They do 75% of their lending to LMI communities. And it has other certifications as well that are aligned with PCE. One other thought is like, what are other CCAs doing? Perhaps PCE could collaborate with the California CCA organization and, strengthen numbers, right? So if all the CCAs decided to leave any bank that's financing the fossil fuel industry and move to a cleaner bank, that could be something that has even more impact. And I just listed the banks that are listed on Cal CCA's website as partners of theirs that some we may not want to consider. River City Bank, I think PCE is already looking at to do some business with, so that could be a bank to consider. But ultimately, I think if PCE wants to move away from JP Morgan, it's really just about doing the research on the banks that are out there, asking questions of those banks, having conversations, and just finding the right alignment with the banking partner that would do the most to promote the mission of PCE. So with that, I'll just leave it to discussion.
Thank you.
If I can press the slide right. Yeah. And happy to try to answer questions, but I probably don't have all the answers.
Quick comment and question. Thank you for bringing this to us. I think it's important. Is it possible for CAC to recommend that the board consider other banking alternatives?
Yeah, this was agendized as a discussion item. We could bring it back as an action item, but that said, our CFO's plan is to do an RFP for new banking services this fall.
Oh,
So that's already in the works.
okay.
But could we, in the next time we can make it an action item, can we make a recommendation that it not be a fossil fuel supporting bank?
Yes, we can put that on the agenda for the next.
Great, but whenever that meeting is, it's gonna be next month, we think, right?
We think it's next month.
Okay.
No, it is definitely next
Next
month.
month.
Just not sure if August is happening, but next month is happening.
I was gonna
Yes,
ask that
July's
same question,
happening.
could it be an action item?
I have just a very fantastic presentation. I've been doing research the same vein for personal banking, and you've uncovered even more information than I've been able to find, so I really appreciate it. Just one little teeny bit. I tried to check out one of the links that you had there, green.bank or something.
Bank.green.
Bank.green. I did do it right when I was doing clicked on your link, and the link wasn't working, so you might want to double check that one.
Okay, I didn't like activate any links in the presentation, but I think if you just Google bank.green, it'll send you
And
to
I
that.
did, and I still got it saying that it's something
Okay,
working, so I don't know what's going on with them.
I'll find the right link and send it to you.
Yeah, it looked like it was a legit link, but it just
Yeah.
wasn't working.
Yeah.
Oh, Robert has a question.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, John. That was just a great presentation. Thank you for all the research. It was not too much in the weeds. I thought it was very thorough. When we move forward next month, I just want to ask a question. Could we give preference to local banks? I understand that PCE has business reasons for doing things, but could we give preference to local banks? That's my first question. And my second and last question is, are we with JP Morgan Chase only because the relationship ended with First Republic, or did we have that and then re-up? I thought I heard you say that we kind of inherited JP Morgan Chase.
Yeah, that's my understanding, but I'll leave it to Kirsten or Vanessa if they know more on that.
Yeah, that's my understanding also. You'll remember like when there were a number of banks that collapsed, I think ours was the first, it was First Republic was the first one to go down. And so as John said, they got bought out by JP Morgan Bank and Chase, and we were just part of the assets that got bought. And so now we are, doing an RFP to see what other options are out there.
So that is our first touch point. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, we never chose them, I would say. Yeah.
Good. I want to make sure that's clear. Thank you. And my other question, can we give preference to local banks? Can we include in the discussion, we've talked before that Peninsula Clean Energy is an idea more than it is an electric cell of electricity. It's an idea about how to have a right relationship with the planet. It would seem to me local banks should get some special treatment because of that. And that's just my preference. I just raised the question, can we do that?
Local non-fossil fuel funding banks.
That's a great question. That'd be a question for our CFO. I can't answer that, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well, put it in the hopper and we'll get an answer eventually. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, fantastic presentation, John. I think it needed to be said. And I'm surprised, like, just hearing the backstory of even the PC didn't do an RFP the following year after merger to explore banking.
They've been busy growing like by leaps and bounds.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think in the RFP, we should, ask the board to put the, the green fossil fuel free and local in that RFP, so that will narrow and, the qualified bidders in that RFP. I think that's really key to get that in the language, for this upcoming.
And I was just wondering if we could join with our other CCA members in the association to all do this and then make a big announcement that we've all done it.
For some reason, I'm thinking it's a good idea that we're doing the recommendation next month because y'all can think about all the great things you want to include and come
Right,
back
right.
with your ideal language.
Okay, sorry.
So they're going out with an RFP in the fall, is that correct? Has that RFP already been written? Is that in the
Not
works?
to
right
my
now?
knowledge. I think our CFO right now has just been heads down on the budget. So it's next month will be plenty of time for y'all to get your recommendations.
Okay, and he will be giving us a presentation in the next month?
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering, is that something that CAC members could have some input into either the development of that RFP or the evaluation of the RFP applications?
I can ask.
Anyone else in the room?
Just a comment. So thank you for giving this context to everyone. I guess this is more to PCE though, is banks tend to bundle services, especially if you're a customer who's got multiple hands in a lot of different pots. And I know that in previous CAC meetings, we've heard and discussed that there would be RFPs, not just for banking, but then also, for example, for the upcoming solar and battery storage, there was a idea of doing some credit enhancement with a new banking partner. And so there just seems to be a lot of overlap that all leads back to who do we do business with or who does banking with. And, if it got almost $20 million in the hopper there in your savings account, then maybe they'll give us really good interest rates there.
Is there any public comment?
I don't
Online?
see any online, no.
Okay. Anybody else, any last comments? I want to thank John. It was great. I want to apologize. I know John has been asking us to do this for 8 months, and then I finally said, why don't you do it? And that was, Kathleen had that idea. That was a good idea. So thank you for doing that. I think this is fantastic.
Happy to do it.
Ditto, great work.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, great. Nice to see. Next is Kirsten and Vanessa, Marketing Community Liaison update.
Yeah, a couple of updates. I already mentioned but I'll say it again, ribbon cutting at, Woodland Creek Condo Association in East Palo Alto, but it's actually on the Menlo Park side of 101, June 28th. Speaking of EVs also, we have brought our EV advisor service in-house. Used to be when you called our EV advisor, you would actually talk to somebody from Grid Alternatives. Now we have trained our call center reps to also be EV advisors. So it saves everyone a step. And you are more, if you're a Spanish speaker, you are more likely to, you will be able to speak to someone in your language because all of our call center reps are bilingual in English and Spanish. So A, they don't have to go through an extra step to schedule an EV advisor, and B, they can get their advice in English or Spanish, or any other language through a translator. So that's good news, and that is launching Monday. Yeah, so we love that. That's a good thing. Good for the customers. Also just some fun news. My team, the community relations team, is launching what we're calling a Voice of Customer initiative this summer. In which we hear so much great customer feedback. When we're out in the community tabling, or having meeting with our stakeholders from you all, et cetera. So we're gonna be systematizing how we collect that, all those random comments and things we hear. We're working with a data consultant, a qualitative data consultant on figuring out how to do a better job at collecting that data, storing it, analyzing it, et cetera. We've got an intern, a summer intern working with us on that. Maybe we'll team up with the account services team on this as well to just do a better job at figuring out what our customers are actually telling us in the aggregate and how we respond to that.
Kristen, will you use those then on the website? Do a better job of sprinkling those throughout or putting them in an index and say, what do our customers say about? And then they could go find it or something.
Oh, interesting. Well, first, let's figure out what our customers are saying. Then we'll get circle back.
But I mean, use it. I'm sure a lot of it's gonna be great. And
Yeah.
it's so authentic to get comments from users.
Absolutely. We've been getting them for years, obviously, and it's mostly just going into our brains, and then we say, our users say this, and then, but it'd be great to be able to say 100 people said this last 3 months. Then we're like, oh, this was really something compared to one really loud person said this.
Should be on the landing page, the homepage.
Yeah. But of course, the website is another source of customer data, of which pages do people go to most frequently?
Yeah.
Where do they spend the most time? That tells you a lot about where people are most interested, or where they're getting stuck, or where they're just bored, or where they're leaving the site altogether. So there's a bunch of different types of customer data that we could be bringing into this in the long term from other departments as well.
Great idea. Love that.
And with AI, we could probably take that data and organize it. You know,
Yes.
the AI could do it automatically, especially if it's check these boxes type of, customer feedback.
Yes. And we do have an AI consultant that we're going to be talking with about that.
Oh.
I mean, our summer intern is also working on coding some qualitative data, but that is time consuming, especially when your intern goes off back to grad school. And so yeah, I do wonder about how we can get AI to code our qualitative data for us.
Is your AI consultant AI?
He's a real person.
He looks like a real person.
Anything else for?
I know.
Okay. Yeah, that's what we got this month.
Any public comment? Online?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys. Working group reports. Does anyone want to volunteer from their working group a report? Maybe, go ahead, John.
Yeah, building electrification working group met this month, actually an hour ago. So yeah, the home upgrade program continues to have a very slow uptake. There's several reasons for that, but the issue's been escalated and hoped to accelerate soon. Water heater rebates are kind of holding steady, which isn't really great. We need them to go up. We need more people putting in heat pump water heaters. The numbers were like 49 rebates last month, which it's estimated that about 12,000 water heaters are replaced every year in San Mateo County. So 1,000 a month. 49 rebates going to heat pump water heaters means about 5% of the new water heaters being installed are electric, which we need to change that. And then there was a good meeting on May 29th. It was local electeds were invited, both in PCE and SVCE territory. 10 cities from San Mateo County were represented. The meeting was just to educate local electeds on the different reach code opportunities this code cycle. And I'm pretty sure they talked about AB 306, which would make all reach code options, take them off the table if it passes in its current form. So I would just encourage everyone to, the AB 306 is supposed to go to the Senate Housing Committee. We're guessing on June 24th. So if you could take a moment to call a senator that's on that committee and let them know that there's a lot of problems with this bill and please don't support it or make sure that it's amended. Every one of those calls makes a difference, and the more that they hear it, the more that they'll know that people care about it and will actually think about the bill and look into it and learn about the problems with it.
Which committee was that?
Senate Housing,
Senate Housing, okay.
that's its first stop in the Senate.
Sorry, I know it's late. I have 3 questions, and if you want to sideline them,
About the working
I'll
group?
just get it, yeah.
Go ahead, that's what we're doing.
With AB 306, I believe that municipal codes, like a zero knox code, would not be impacted because they're not related to Title 24. Can you confirm that? And if that's the case, then would that be communicated to our member organizations that despite AB 306 or whatever it is, that you can still move forward with building electrification policies in this way? Is that something that PCE intends to communicate with local government?
I think that's a great question to email to Blake.
Okay, but this committee might want to hear the answer, but I can do that, yes.
And the report back.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 more, real quick. Does PCE have plans to message out to the public the potential, I would say likely, end in the federal tax credit on renewables and heat pumps? Meaning, should the members go out and get these things installed and take advantage of the tax credit this year before it sunsets? Or at least give people a heads up of the uncertainty. I wondered if the subcommittee had discussed that.
No,
Do
but
you
it's a
wanna
good point.
recommend that?
I can answer that actually. I was in touch with our marketing team and they mentioned that they're doing an email campaign at the end of this month on that topic. And we're working on getting it in like the city newsletters and letting folks in.
Great, thank you. Last thing, we could take this offline if we need to. I'm curious to understand more about the barriers to the home upgrade program. Like, why is it slow going? I mean, I'm glad to hear you said that it's escalated now.
Yeah, I mean, I
fix
think
it.
the main issue is with the implementer of the program and yeah, it's just, I don't know the details, yeah,
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah.
Okay,
But it's a known thing they're working on.
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
thank you.
And as a result of that, no marketing has gone out for it.
That's why it's. But the numbers are different, like the 300 over the last 3 years, there was just like 1 appliance per house typically. Whereas the new one that they were trying to roll out is like 3 or 4 appliances, a whole house, a whole unit.
For income qualified.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, and they only got 9 because of the project management thing, and it's a fairly new rollout too, since October. So it's not really an apples to apples, it's an apple and orange.
Only 9 homes are opting for completely free upgrades.
So far. Yeah, it's in 2024, it's been October, November, December 2024. Right. Right.
More agreements have been signed, but just there's slow going.
Okay. Thank you.
Another working group?
Just the transportation working group, Carlos is on holiday, so we normally meet this week before this meeting, but it had to be pushed another week, so I think they're still trying to figure out the time. But yeah, the EV thing is good now with the well, that's better. And I think the e-bike stuff rolled out too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
did we not mention that in the last meeting that, yeah, the e-bike program is back out again and it's year round.
Yeah, they just need to update, I think, on one of the providers, Epic Cyclone Pacifica. They said they are not participants.
Oh, that's interesting, because they've been in the past.
Yeah, they said in the past, but apparently not now, but they're on the website, so. Yeah, I let, no, is he, look,
I'm sorry,
sorry,
City staff.
blanking out of the name, sorry.
I could ask that.
Ibarra?
Oh,
Gabby. Yeah. Gabby.
you let her know. Okay, thank you.
Any other working group reports? Online, no, here, no.
Marketing strategy normally is met just before this,
Yes,
but
pushed
we
it.
are, yeah, we
We
pushed
had
it.
another meeting issue on that
Well,
one.
yeah, because Gwen hasn't been able to do it. She's got back from a long trip, and so we're gonna meet later this
We
month.
have a great report next week.
And of course, because of the project management stuff, marketing couldn't push that. Yes.
Is there any public comment on working groups?
No.
Online, okay, great, thank you. So next is upcoming topics for discussion.
Yes, okay. So coming up at the June board meeting. Topics are Sean's contract comes up, I think, every year, for negotiations. So approval of CEO contract is on the agenda. There is something called a public hearing, HR open positions. And it sounds like that's a new state law that public agencies have to have a public hearing once in a while on the open positions they have. So it's like, that's a new compliance thing we'll have to do. And our budget approval. Those are the big items for, and Nellie's bringing some JPA amendments potentially to, I think they're pretty minor, to the board as well. JPA is the Joint Powers Authority. That's the legal document that we have formed under. It's the cities legally agreed to collaborate together to create Peninsula Clean Energy. So it's our forming charter. Alrighty, and then in July, coming to potentially coming to the board. We're looking at creating a special rate for Caltrain. And this is interesting because they're, of course, we're supplying their trains with their electricity. It's us and San Jose Clean Energy. But it turns out the trains, when they break, they have regenerative braking, so they're actually sending power back into the grid. But there's no rate that accounts for that. The rate doesn't exist. So we may be, creating a special rate that actually accounts for the regenerative braking, which is
Wait, so right now, when the train breaks and the power goes back into the grid, do they get a credit like
I
for
think
solar?
that's the issue. I don't think there's a legal mechanism for that.
So a PG&E is just pocketing that energy?
I'm not sure what happens, but I think that's what's being addressed.
I want to get the truck.
I think they are.
Well, then we should be the power provider. Help us out.
Um, and we should be their power providers?
Yeah, definitely, I mean,
We are.
We are.
we are already.
We are already, yes.
It's just coming with a rate, it's coming with a rate schedule.
Yeah. And then, and then potentially some strategic planning updated goals, maybe coming to the board in July as well. And some power resources contracts. And possibly a residential solar and storage discussion. But you all heard about that quite recently from Peter Levitt. Yeah, so that's what's coming up.
For us, I'd like us to bring the banking piece back up. I'd like it, are we gonna be reviewing the budget at all? We haven't, we got a little report in the past, is that part of the plan?
What would
I
you?
don't know, we've had it in the past, I don't know if it's even appropriate, I'm just asking.
Yeah, we have in the past
Yeah.
reviewed. We just gotta look at the budget
So I just,
before.
here's what the budget is, you know, what the goals are and stuff.
Okay, I can request that.
And then if he comes, we can ask him about the bank part, so that would be really good. And then the tracker, the update from the staff on where we're at with our recommendations and requests. And then there was something else from last month, but I can't remember. Wasn't there something we were pushing to this next month from last month? Took off the agenda, something? No,
Was that the SB 540? We talked about that.
that was not what I was referring to, but.
No, I thought we talked about it last month and.
Yeah.
There was just, I heard a news report on I-7 that Senator Becker had gotten a lot of money, campaign money from the big tech companies who are supporting this AD or SB 540, which is Becker's the one who sponsored it.
I feel like
And-
we veered off topic. Badly.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
also, when we did talk about this, we put it to rest with 504 because wasn't
504.
there a big discussion that everyone was invited to hear both sides? We put it to rest, so I think further discussions were
Oh,
encouraged to be
that's what
like.
happened last,
Yeah,
okay.
we did.
Oh, I just an update
Right.
on it, because there was just breaking news on it yesterday. About
Okay.
the potential conflict of interest with Sunday.
I have a raised hand from, Jen, did you want to say something?
Yes, just in relation to 540, that bill is undergoing some revisions. So I think that's in part why we pump the brakes on any further presentations.
Okay, thanks for the update.
Thank
It's
you.
still under revision.
Yeah, you want to say that?
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry. Sorry, Robert has his hand up too, I'm sorry, I'm trying to look something up. Go ahead.
No, I'm glad Jen went first because I knew it was pertinent to the discussion. I just want to comment on what you said, Kirsten, about the strategic stuff that's going to the board in July. That is stuff correct me if I'm wrong, that is stuff that the strategic working group has already seen.
You're on that group, right?
Yes, so I just want to make sure that's clear. We've already seen all that. We don't need to see it again. I'm just making a comment rather than a question.
Okay, great. Thank you, Robert.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to bring up the?
Yes, the meeting, the item that Jason was thinking of was adjustment on rates. And it turns out we're not going to adjust our rates. So that's why we're not bringing it to you because nothing's happening. The rates are going to stay the same, which is nice because we have a pretty nice discount on our rates right now.
What is the percentage or what?
It's about a 10% discount right now for on generation rates compared to PG&E for San Mateo County customers. And then for Los Banos customers, because they have a different PCIA vintage, it's about 30%.
Are we telling anybody this? 'Cause I
Yes.
didn't know that till you just. said
Yes.
that.
What is it on the website? Jason didn't.
Yeah, I would say we haven't been, you have a good point. We haven't been super vocal about it because we thought we might adjust it in June. Now, and now June has come and we're like, I guess we don't need to adjust it right now. So it is, now would be the time to to adjust it, but I think maybe something has to go through the board. Our recommendation is not gonna change the rates. The board, I think, has to bless that, and then we can assess how we're gonna market that.
Is there any public, oh, go ahead, Ken.
I just want to know if there's any update on that review of all the committees that the board subgroup was doing.
Oh.
Is that something we can get? updated?
Yes, I do not have an update. I think Donna Colson, the chair, I think she's still kind of thinking through that process, and I have nothing new to share.
So just wondering what that means for the CAC in terms of our membership and composition is kind of on hold and extended.
I have nothing new to share.
Is that something we could maybe get some enlightenment on next month?
I would recommend you reach out directly to Donna.
Okay, I can do that too. Okay, is there any public comment on upcoming topics?
No.
Okay, great. Next is committee member reports. Are there any committee member reports? Seeing none, I tried to get out by 8:30. I'm 2 minutes late. So I think we're okay. Unless, is that cool? Is everybody good?
Yes.
All right, thank you guys very much. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, John. That was great. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Vanessa, everybody for being here. That was good. I cannot promise it'll be this week again, but we are adjourned.
Do you know